In 1980, President Carter drew a huge crowd downtown just days before the election. In 1976, thousands turned out at the airport to see Jerry Ford. Others, including Nixon, Johnson, and Kennedy, all visited Rochester. Today at Republican headquarters, the phones were ringing off the hook. The biggest problem tomorrow is expected to be parking. Most lots downtown are usually full by 9 a.m. Carpooling is suggested. No extra buses will be added. There are a number of ramps and lots in the area, but you may have to do some walking. Officials wouldn't say which streets might be blocked off. At the War Memorial today, telephone crews were running extra phone lines across Court Street, there for the national media. More than 70 phones are being installed inside the building. White House advance people were giving out little information because of security. Stage crews were setting up the lighting. The Bishop Kearney Band will be on stage to play Hail to the Chief. Their instruments have to be inside by 6 a.m. so they can be searched by the Secret Service. Volunteers were blowing up 5,000 balloons, which will be dropped from the ceiling during the speech. It wasn't easy work.
I think it's important, whether you're filling balloons, passing out pamphlets, working at Reagan, Bush, or Republican headquarters, is to contribute.
Thousands of hand-painted signs were neatly stacked in the basement, waiting to be handed out to the faithful.
If preparing for a presidential visit isn't tough enough, they can't start decorating the War Memorial until late tonight. That's because they can't cover the ice until the Amherst play at home this evening. Alan Harris, WOKR News.
Here's your pay, don't lose it. So if you don't want it, just say so.
This is David Burns. Opponents of Ronald Reagan were not on hand to greet the president as Air Force One arrived. But downtown, a protest was already underway. Some were activists from the Metro Act organization. Others simply had a point to make.
I think it's a disgrace to this country that we have a president who is supporting a group of guerrillas who are attacking people in the countryside for a government which is very popular in Nicaragua. That's one of the reasons. I could give you about 100 more, I think.
Foreign affairs issues appeared to dominate the demonstrators' concerns, but many also said they were motivated by the arms race.
I think there's many issues. I think the biggest is the nuclear disarmament issue.
During President Reagan's speech, a few more Mondale signs appeared inside as well as outside, but there were no disturbances. None of Reagan's backers converted to Walter Mondale along this windy road to Rochester, but that didn't appear to bother any protesters. Most seemed more anxious to make a personal statement than change any opinions. David Burns, WOKR News.
It was business as usual later on this morning at the local Reagan-Bush headquarters. Inside, campaign workers prepared for President Reagan's visit this afternoon. Outside, crews replaced windows damaged in this morning's firebombing.
Probably whoever was involved just got going and thought a good exercise like this might add some extra dimension to the day.
It was around 4:30 this morning when a passerby spotted a smoking paper bag propped in the doorway of campaign headquarters at East Main and Stilson Street. He went around the corner and told two police officers what he saw. When the officers arrived, they heard a bang and saw a white fiery explosion. Police say the homemade bomb consisted of a plastic gallon milk jug containing gasoline with a wick on the end. The blast broke some windows and burned carpeting in the doorway. Police say the man who discovered the device was questioned and given a lie detector test, but he is not considered a suspect. Investigators are looking to question another man seen in the area before the bomb went off. A coffee hour scheduled to be held here at Reagan-Bush headquarters tonight at 8 o'clock will go on as planned. Members of local ethnic organizations were invited to the coffee hour to sign a letter supporting President Reagan's candidacy. Patrice Walsh, WOKR News.
It was a winning place for the local hockey team last night, and today local Republicans were hoping some of the good luck would rub off. Someone told the president how to get cheers from a Rochester crowd.
I'm only trying to make it 2-0. What did you do for the Mercs last night when they made it 10-0?
But Reagan says he may be skating on thin ice as far as those large leads in the polls.
The polls are scaring me to death, because I have a feeling that maybe some people are looking at them and saying, oh, we don't have to go and vote. It's all over. Well, President Dewey told me to tell you that isn't true.
For this crowd, that shouldn't be a problem.
All right, if that's the way you feel about it, you've talked me into it.
The audience didn't need much convincing about Democrat Walter Mondale.
You know, if my opponent's campaign were a television show, it would be, let's make a deal. You get to trade your prosperity for whatever surprise he's got hidden behind the curtain.
A happy ending for Reagan in this election would be that realignment of party loyalty that could give Republicans dominance for years. And as Reagan asked for support for Republican candidates on the podium behind him, he tipped his hat to the people who may give him what he wants.
You young people, you are what this election is all about. You and your future.
Although Republicans have a voter registration majority of more than 29,000 in Monroe County, and although local polls show the president doing well, Republicans had a good reason to ask Reagan to come. Ronald Reagan is the only Republican presidential candidate in recent history to lose the county. Richard Nixon won it in 1972 with 58% of the vote. Gerald Ford won it in 76 with 51%. But Reagan didn't campaign here in 1980 and lost it to Jimmy Carter, as he got only 39% of the votes. Reagan supporters today weren't thinking of losing, though. Amherst team captain Chris Langevin presented Reagan with a hockey jersey emblazoned with the number 1, hoping he will finish number 1 next Tuesday. Gary Nurnberg, WOKR News.
Jesse Jackson was an hour and 20 minutes late getting to Monroe Community College, but that didn't bother the people who were kept waiting. Once on stage, Jackson wasted little time telling people exactly what he thought of the last 4 years under President Reagan.
Don't you know right here in Rochester, in upstate New York, whatever he said today, it's in the paper this day. 1.6 million more families will not have heat this winter. 2 million more families will not have heat by next year. I tell you, we should give peace a chance and give Reagan a ranch.
Jackson called Reagan a Robin Hood in reverse, taking from the poor to give to the rich. He says Reagan suffers from a character deficit.
Reagan is not kind to children. He's not kind to poor folks. He's not kind to old folks. He's not kind to the stranger on the Jericho Road. He suffers from a gross neglect, gross insensitivity. There's something immoral. There's something unjust, something mean about the Reagan spirit.
This was the third of 4 rallies Jackson was to attend in New York today, but Jackson's plane couldn't land on time in Rochester. He had to circle the airport for about 30 minutes while waiting for President Reagan to leave. Jackson says this isn't the first time this has happened.
All I really can say is that from where I have come, to be within 65 miles of him and he hear I'm coming, to stop all airplanes and escape, he knows I'm on his case.
Local Democrats needed today's rally, if for no other reason than to cut down on the possible coattail effects of a Ronald Reagan landslide on Tuesday. 4 years ago, Ronald Reagan carried New York State. The Democrats want to make sure he doesn't do that again. Jim Redmond, WOKR News.
It's wonderful. I'm Ukrainian. I love Reagan, President Reagan, and I have a feeling he will win.
I think he was great today. This is the best president what United States ever had, and I support him the whole way.
It was great.
Why?
He's for us.
What did you think of the speech?
Well, the speech was wonderful, and I'm very happy to be here, too, because this is a great man. It's a real, what you call, a real American way. That man is beautiful.
What did you think of the speech?
I thought it was fantastic.
What did you think of the speech?
Oh, every word of it. People were crying near me. I almost cried, but I didn't.
The end of the Reagan rally didn't mean everyone got to go home. 10,000 cheering fans leave behind a big cleanup job. At the War Memorial, there is the added burden of getting the floor cleared for tomorrow's hockey game. Politicians, of course, hope that there's more left behind after a rally than a pile of political posters waiting to be carted away. But just what impression they leave isn't easy to control. Stagehands have been working almost around the clock behind the scenes. Some said it was all show business.
A lot of it I felt was a little too staged. They did a lot of rehearsing ahead of time. The signs were all put out ahead of time by Reagan supporters. They weren't brought in by the Reagan people themselves.
But the impression that counts on Election Day isn't a dozen or so stagehands. 10,000 cheering fans are 10,000 potential votes. The rally was for them, and they got what they were promised. David Burns, WOKR News.